Hi friends, welcome to Morning Albums. Today we're going to talk about some of the music I've been listening to and some of the music my followers have been listening to. Hi friends, thanks for stopping by. Kyle here. So today I thought we'd try something a little different. I wanted to talk about some of the music I've been listening to, but unfortunately I don't have physical copies of these albums yet. Generally, I like to just kind of test out albums via a streaming platform to see if I like them, and then if I end up liking them where they're either one of my favorite albums of the year so far, or they're just an album from the past that I really like, I'll end up purchasing that on CD or vinyl usually. So I don't have physical copies of these yet, and they might enter my cart soon, but I thought they were worth pointing out in case anyone is looking for new listens lately. And then I also asked my followers on my Instagram account at Morning Albums what they've been listening to lately, and I got a great response. I'm sorry if I can't include your response in this video, but I tried to select as many as I could. So I'll feature some of those, and I'll talk about my feelings on those artists or those albums, and if I'm not familiar with them, I'll point that out too. So first I wanted to talk about a new album from the group Plains. Now, Plains is a collaboration from between Waxahachie and Jess Williamson, and this album is really fantastic. It's sort of like an alt-country album with some, pop influences. A lot of the songs essentially are pop songs when you really break them down, but a lot of songs about relationships and heartache. I love their voices. I think they work so great together. And then there's just some beautiful instrumentation. Some, like with country music, you get a lot of slide guitar, a lot of acoustic guitar. And it sounds very bright, very pastoral. And the songs are just written so well. I would check out one of the lead singles. I think if I'm getting the title correct, it was Problem With It. Phenomenal chorus, very catchy. It's been stuck in my head a few days now, and I've been singing it throughout the house. So I would definitely check out this album. It's probably going to end up on my list of top albums of 2022 by the end of the year, and I just think it's a great showing for these two. I'm so happy they decided to collaborate together. I think they make an excellent duo. I look forward to solo releases from either of them, or another collaboration in the future would be great. I would love to see them on tour if I could. Hopefully they come by my area. Another album I wanted to talk about from this year is by Micaiah Mccraven. They are a jazz percussionist slash band leader, and the new record is called In These Times. Apparently, this record they've started working on back in 2015, and it's finally seeing the light of day. And the finished product is super, super well done. It's sort of a jazz fusion, chamber jazz, new jazz album. Mccraven plays interesting percussion, but also incorporates synths and sitar and uses samples. So just great fusion of old school jazz and new style. But there's also some phenomenal players on this album. I recognized Marta Sophia Honer, who I just purchased an album from recently, and they play viola on this album. There's also some great bass work, there's great piano work, harp, saxophone, violin, just has all those chamber elements. If I had a suggestion for picking out a song, I'd say maybe the 7 string to start with. Then you could kind of get a good idea of the vibes of this album, but very good. I'm kind of just going to keep this in the rotation, and maybe I'll end up purchasing a copy, but I could see this definitely entering my favorites of 2022. And next we have Laura Jurd with the Big Friendly album. I discovered this on Bandcamp, and Laura seems to be from the UK and is a cornet and piano player. Just wonderful vibes on this album. If you take a look at the album cover, it sounds like the album cover. It's very bright, very warm, very playful, very friendly indeed. The album itself is jazz, but it also incorporates some folky elements, and there's also some really interesting guitar work. Some of the guitar work you can honestly picture in like a indie rock band, but then you have those jazzy trumpets and piano and all those other elements as well. So just a really cool record. I've been enjoying listening to this, particularly in the fall, and I'm gonna just kind of sit with it for a while and see how it if I end up returning to it. Next up, we have Matthew Halsell with Color Yes, which originally was released in 2009, but I believe they re-released it in 2019 because they weren't really happy with the mixing and mastering of the original product, but really loved all the instrumentation on the release. So they kind of revisited it. And it's just a wonderful album. I'm just discovering this now because an artist I follow posted a picture on it. I really like the album cover, and they said it was very nice for the fall season to listen to. It's a cool jazz release, very mellow, very relaxing. My fiance and I put it on in the car when we had about an hour drive, and we sort of were just mesmerized by it. I was almost in a meditative state while I was driving down the highway. Just a wonderful memory. I love how music kind of creates these memories for you, where when you hear a song, you can be transported back to the place when you were listening to it. And I feel like I'm going to associate that day with this album for a long time. And it was just a really lovely day where we went to Mystic, Connecticut, and just walked around the town. It was very beautiful. We had a lovely brunch. We went to a record store and a bookstore, and then we went to an apple orchard after. So just a wonderful day, and just this album is I'm gonna think of that day every time I listen to this album. So now I want to talk about what some of my followers on Instagram have been listening to. I put up a question on my story asking what people have been listening to, and I got some responses. I thought I'd share them with you. So Clemmy wrote that she's listening to the new Taylor Swift release, Midnights. So Clemmy, I am a Taylor Swift fan. I really love the last two albums, Folklore and Evermore. I've only given Midnights like one spin through, but I like what I heard so far. Very cool production. It's a lot different than I was expecting. I kind of thought by the aesthetic of the album cover and just all the branding that went along with it, I kind of was hoping we'd be in for like a Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac 70s rock pop sound, but we got something completely different. A lot of electronic driven beats and synths. I think it's interesting direction for Taylor. Some of the songs, I don't think this is going to beat Folklore or Evermore for me, or even albums like Red or 1989, but maybe, certainly above Reputation and Lover. But just, there's some really good songs. I really like Anti-Hero. I've been, singing that chorus ever since I heard it. I like the production on it. I think there's some interesting choices and some synth work. I really liked songs like Mastermind that had like an arpeggiating synth going on, and songs like Karma were cool. The track with Lana Del Rey I liked. So I'm gonna sit with it a little bit more. I'm seeing some of the reception from critics is really strong, but on the just music community in general seems to be kind of a negative reaction. I don't know if the negative comments I've seen so far are justified. Some of the comments I've seen is that it's all the songs sound the same, which I think can be kind of a lazy criticism at times, because I enjoy a cohesive piece of work where, an artist went into it thinking of a particular sound, a particular vibe, and I enjoy that as long as there's different rhythmic choices and things that can make songs stick out from one another. I thought there was interesting changes in tempo and different instrumentation used, and some kind of cool uses of effects and auto-tune and all that. So I don't get that criticism necessarily. So it's too early for me to form an opinion, but I'm open. I think it could be potentially a good album, but it's probably not gonna eclipse those last two for me. Ananda was listening to Bruce Springsteen's latest song. I think it's a cover of Night Shift by the Commodores, if I'm getting that correct. I haven't heard this yet, but very cool. I wanted to shout out this album real quick, Darkness on the Edge of Town, just because I feel like it has kind of out of the autumn vibes of Bruce. I'd say it's the Nebraska in this one kind of have a more autumny feel, and it's got some of my favorite songs like Badlands. Candy's Room is one of mine, and The Promised Land, obviously. So Bruce is A-okay in my book. I love Bruce. Josh said he was listening to the new Carly Rae Jepsen album, which I have spun probably once. Don't have a physical copy yet, but I'm really enjoying it. Seems like there's a lot of bops, of course. Carly brings the bops. So I've been liking that. Very cool chorus, very big choruses. I was expecting a little something different from the Western Winds single drop. I thought, again, kind of she was going to go in more of a folky kind of throwback sound, but this album surprised me. It's a lot of, I don't want to say more of the same, but when you go into a Carly Rae Jepsen release, you're expecting those great pop tunes, very upbeat, very memorable choruses, and obviously very playful and fun. So I think the album lands when you think of all those factors. It has the bops, has the choruses, has the good production. So I'm looking forward to listening to this more, and I'm sure it's going to be one of my favorites by the end of the year, because Emotion is one of my favorite records, and I love Dedication as well, and I'm just a big Carly Rae Jepsen fan. So Josh, great choice. I hope you're enjoying it, and Carly forever. A good childhood friend of mine, Sam, replied and said he's listening to the new Steve Lacy album. I'm not really familiar with Steve Lacy, Sam. I'd have to check this out. I'm very interested. I know that they've worked with Tyler, the Creator, and Frank Ocean, and I believe they've written with artists like Solange and Kendrick Lamar, who of course I respect and love their music as well. And I believe Steve is a member of the band called The Internet as well. So I'm curious to check this out. I'll definitely give it a listen. And thanks for chiming in, Sam. I appreciate it. And JP said they were listening to Bad Religion. Weirdly enough, I'm not really familiar with Bad Religion. If it's anything in the vein of like an Operation Ivy or a Rancid, I think I would really like their music. So I should go check this out. From what I've seen, it's kind of hardcore punk, skate punk, that kind of vibe. I would definitely be interested in checking it out. I don't know why I haven't. Very prolific, very well-known band. It's one that's just escaped me over the years. So thanks, JP, for the suggestion. I'll go check them out. And Scott mentioned that he was listening to John, is it Fahey? I always see it written, but I've never actually pronounced it. Fahey? Fahy? Fahey? Fahy? Anyway, very well-known, prolific, American traditional guitarist. Great acoustic guitar work. I'm not super familiar, but I've heard them before, and I think during the autumn season, very appropriate to listen to. So thanks, Scott, for sharing. I appreciate it. And that's all I have for today. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I love talking about music. Please drop in the comments what you're listening to. I always love recommendations, and I love talking about music. So I'm happy to jump in and talk with you in the comments. And also consider following me on Instagram at Morning Elms, where I post a lot of short form video content of what I'm listening to. And if you just want to get a slice of my life, that's where I'm at. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate it. Take care.